Hello, my name is Natasha Tracy, and this is Bipolar Burble. Today I want to talk about my experience with electroconvulsive therapy. This happened about 14 years ago. I want to talk about what it was like before, during, and after, and how I feel about electroconvulsive therapy today. So I remember 14 years ago, and I remember being in a very bad place. I was incredibly suicidal. That's the only reason why ECT was even on the table. But I thought to myself, it's crackers that they still offer that barbaric procedure, and I will never do it. I would rather die. But eventually, it came to the point where I actually was likely to die or do that treatment, try it. And it turned out I didn't want to die. I really did want to get better. And I knew the statistics on electroconvulsive therapy, and people typically call it ECT. Some people will call it electroshock therapy, but fewer and fewer people call it that these days. And so I knew the success statistics on ECT, and they're quite good for people with very substantial depressions. And so I agreed to try it. I mean, I was extremely desperate. The doctor answered all my questions, and one day I went to the hospital to get my first treatment. My friend came with me. She had driven me to the hospital and was with me in the room where they do ECT while they were getting things ready. And I remember thinking in my head, I'm never going to wake up from this. And so tears were streaming down my face. And I looked at my friend and I said, don't worry, it'll be fine. I love you. And I just kept telling her that everything was going to be fine. I suspect it wasn't very believable given all the crying. That's what I did. And so they went through the ECT procedure. So they tied off my leg. I had an IV inserted. I was then anesthetized, so put to sleep. And basically, the next thing I know, I woke up. I woke up next door in the recovery room only a few minutes later. ECT is incredibly fast. And so I tried to get the nurse's attention, but that's when I realized my jaw was in so much pain I could not talk. So I tried to sort of move my jaw and I couldn't. And then I looked down and I saw that I was locked to the gurney. This is not a sight you ever want to see. Now, I will say they have very good reasons for locking you to the gurney, and that is that they don't want you wandering off while you're half asleep and hurting yourself, getting lost, etc. But no one told me that going in, and really they should. Eventually, of course, the nurse realized I was awake and she gave me some pain medication. And then eventually I went to the next room, which is where we ate breakfast. And we had breakfast there so that we could stay under observation so that the doctors and nurses could make sure that we were well enough to go home. And what I remember about ECT, and I actually did 9 treatments, so people on average get between 9 and 12 treatments in their index series, so the whole series. What I remember is Fruit Loops. Which I know is an unusual thing to remember. But after I would get my ECT therapy and go next door, they had Fruit Loops for breakfast. Now, I never let myself eat sugar cereal. I mean, it's just a waste of everything. But I thought to myself, if they're going to electrocute my brain, then I want Fruit Loops. Damn it. So I ate the Fruit Loops. And I went and I got treatment after treatment. And unfortunately, while the pain directly after the treatments did get less, things were easier as we went, I did find that overall I didn't really agree with the anesthesia. So the anesthesia made me very sick and made me very, very tired. In my case, I did ECT Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So basically I would just get over one treatment and then had to do another. So for me, it was very hard to take. And then after 9 treatments, I noticed something. I noticed that I was starting to experience cognitive distortions. Cognitive distortions are basically where your brain doesn't work correctly. So for me, it manifested as something being in my apartment, but I had no idea how it got there. I drove down a street to the local grocery store, but I didn't recognize a single thing, even though I'd been down it hundreds of times. And that was terrifying to me. Now, the truth is, most cognitive deficits, they do reduce over time. You get that back, that information back. But I was terrified. And after 9 treatments, it wasn't working for me. And the doctor said to me, you have a choice. You can either move to a stronger form of ECT that would have more side effects, or you can stop the treatment. And because of the cognitive deficits, I elected to stop the treatment. Now, I will say that the ECT did cause memory loss for me. So I have memory loss that's permanent from around the event itself. And then I also had memory loss that did come back as well over time. So I had both kinds. That is disconcerting. Memory loss is disconcerting. Memory loss is more disconcerting than you think. I realized, for example, at one point that a couple of friends of mine visited me while I was there, and I literally don't remember them being there. I don't remember what we did. I know kind of what we did, but I don't remember any of it. That kind of thing is something that can be upsetting for someone. I didn't like it. However, let me say this. In spite of all those things that happened during my ECT, I absolutely would do it again and do all of that if I thought that it would help me get better from a severe depression. It absolutely would have been worth it to me had it have worked. And the problem with ECT and treatments in general is that you don't know if they're going to work until you try them. I had no way of knowing that those treatments weren't going to be successful for me. And I have no way of knowing if the stronger form of ECT would have been successful for me. That's the thing about treatment. So you have to be willing to try in order to get that information. It's a very hard way of getting information, but that's what you have to do. So now, looking back at my ECT experience, I can tell you that I feel okay with the decision. I went through a period of shame where I didn't want to tell anyone that that's what I had done. But I have to tell you, around 100,000 people a year in the United States get ECT. It is not rare. You might think that it is, but it isn't. It's just that people don't talk about it. People don't talk about their experiences with ECT because of this shame. And I felt that. I felt that if someone knew that I had gotten that treatment, they would think that I was absolutely insane. And I would understand, but it's not the case, right? I was a person with very severe illness, a very severe depression, and what I needed was help. And that's where I looked for it. Now, in my particular case, I did find help after that through a cocktail of medications because the ECT didn't work for me. But I will say that other people have had wildly different experiences with ECT. Some say it's a miracle. Some choose it over other types of therapy because it works so well for them. And other people say that it was terrible for them. So if you're considering ECT, please make sure and write down all of the questions that you have about it and talk to your doctor. Make sure he answers every question that you have to your satisfaction so that you can feel comfortable with the decision that you make. Because honestly, it can be a life-changing decision. It can save your life, or it can make an impact on your life that is negative. And you need to feel comfortable going in that those are the options that can happen. My name is Natasha Tracy. This is Bipolar Burble.